Okay, picture this. You type one simple sentence into a computer, and it instantly generates the complete working code for, like, an entire video game.
Mhm.
Or imagine using an AI that's just so much better than what came before, people are rating it way more helpful
Yeah.
by a margin that's almost unheard of.
It does sound a bit like science fiction, doesn't it?
Right.
Well, it's happening right now. These capabilities are being shown off. They're real.
Absolutely. And they really point to what feels like a pivotal moment in the incredibly fast evolution of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
On June 5th, 2025, Google officially released the latest version of their flagship AI model, Gemini 2.5 Pro.
And this isn't just, a minor update. It feels like a really significant leap forward. It's a catalyst that's generating, well, incredible excitement, but also sparking some pretty serious debate about what comes next.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about. We're going to take the sources you've shared, the article, the research papers, all the commentary, and really drill down into what matters most about this Gemini 2.5 Pro release.
Right.
Our goal is to help you cut through the noise, understand the core advancements, why they're significant, and what they could mean for how you interact with technology very soon.
Okay, let's dig into this latest AI breakthrough then.
So to really appreciate where Gemini 2.5 Pro is now, I think we need a quick look back, because this model is the product of some pretty intense, fast-paced development.
Oh, definitely. Google first unveiled the whole Gemini family back in late 2023.
That was the 1.0 lineup, right? Ultra, Pro, and Nano?
Exactly. And even then, the Ultra model made waves because it was the first one to actually surpass the average human performance on the MMLU benchmark.
Right, the huge test covering like 57 different subjects.
Yeah, it was a big statement right out of the gate.
Definitely set a high bar. Then, throughout 2024, we saw Google focusing more on integrating Gemini deeper into their ecosystem.
That was the 1.5 series. Faster, more refined, and it started popping up in Search, Workspace, the dedicated Gemini app.
All while the competition was heating up, right? You had Meta's Llama models really pushing things in the open source world.
For sure, putting pressure on the big labs, like Google, to innovate even faster.
Which brings us to early 2025. Google started talking about Gemini 2.0 models as these thinking models.
Ah, yeah, emphasizing that improved chain of thought reasoning. And then came the experimental Gemini 2.5 Pro preview in March.
That's when things got really interesting on the leaderboards, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. That experimental version debuted at #1 on the LM Arena, the chatbot arena, with a jump of over 40 ELO points. Huge jump.
40 points. I mean, for anyone watching those leaderboards, that kind of leap is pretty wild. It felt like Google was saying, okay, we're making a really big move here.
Right. As one analyst put it, it really signaled Google was taking a second chance at, claiming dominance in this AI race.
And that pace just didn't let up. At Google I/O in May 2025, Gemini 2.5 was kind of everywhere.
They announced Gemini 2.5 Flash, the smaller, faster one. They teased that deep think mode.
Right, the experimental thing for really complex problems, exploring multiple paths.
And they talked about specific fine-tunes like LearnLM for education, even free access for students.
We also saw signs of enterprise adoption picking up through Google Cloud, but also that increasing regulatory scrutiny, like the EU Court of Justice looking into AI and copyright.
All building up to the main event we're focused on today, the June 5th, 2025 general availability release. And this is an upgraded preview of 2.5 Pro.
Upgraded how?
Well, Google specifically said they addressed issues, they called them regressions, from that earlier experimental model, polished it up.
And impressively, this June 5th version delivered another performance jump. Gained, another 24 ELO points on LM Arena?
Yeah, cementing its lead around 1470 ELO. And the sources also noted significant improvements in coding.
Ah, the coding. Up 35 ELO on a web dev benchmark. Plus better style and creativity, they said.
Exactly. So this is the stable, polished version that's now rolling out to subscribers, developers via APIs, Google Cloud. It's the result of all that rapid iteration.
Okay, so how did they actually pull this off? What's technically different under the hood with Gemini 2.5 Pro? This built-in thinking idea seems key.
It really does. It feels like a fundamental shift. Instead of just predicting the next word, the model is designed to perform chain of thought reasoning, but internally, before it even generates the response you see.
Okay, internally, so it's not just about the prompt.
Right. Koray Kabikuoglu from DeepMind put it nicely. Gemini 2.5 models are thinking models, capable of reasoning through their thoughts before responding.
Okay, so it's like solving a complex math problem instead of just giving the answer.
It's like it shows its work internally first, works through the steps, evaluates them, then gives you the final answer.
Which should make it much more accurate on things needing logic, like coding, reasoning, math.
Exactly. And they seem to have this layered approach too, sometimes called dynamic reasoning or hybrid thinking.
Like different gears.
Kind of. Like, for simple questions, it uses fast thinking for a quick answer. But for complex ones, it shifts into slow thinking, a more thorough, deliberative process. Digs deeper.
And that experimental deep think mode takes the slow thinking even further.
Precisely. It explores multiple reasoning paths at once before settling on an answer, like asking it to check several sources or try different approaches. It takes longer, sure, but for really tough problems, you might get much higher accuracy.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the native multimodality? That sounds important too.
Oh, it's crucial. Gemini wasn't just a text model that learned images later. It was trained on text, code, images, and audio all together right from the beginning.
So it understands how they all relate natively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you show it an image with text, it doesn't just see pixels and read words separately. It gets the context, how they connect. The sources point out it can analyze diagrams or images without needing separate OCR tools first. That's a big deal.
And video.
Not quite native video input yet, but it can link up with specialized models like Imagen for images, Lyria for audio, Veo for video, so it can understand or create related content based on multimodal prompts. It's connected.
Got it. But the feature everyone seems to be talking about is the massive context window.
Oh, yeah. That's a major differentiator. 1 million tokens. Industry leading.
Okay, 1 million tokens. Put that in perspective for us. How much is that?
It's roughly 750,000 words. Think like 8,000 pages of text.
8,000 pages. Wow. So compared to competitors like GPT-4o with, what, 128K tokens?
Right, which is still large, but maybe only holds a few chapters of a book. Gemini can essentially read an entire novel or analyze a huge legal case file or understand a massive software project's code base all at once.
How does it even manage that much data efficiently?
It requires really sophisticated techniques. The sources mention things like mixture of experts, advanced attention mechanisms, basically smart ways for the AI to focus on the important bits within that giant chunk of text or data.
And this isn't just a bigger number, right? It changes what you can actually do with it.
Absolutely. It means Gemini can summarize incredibly long reports without losing key details. It can analyze and refactor an entire software project, not just snippets. It can remember conversations from hours ago. It just opens up whole new problem spaces for AI assistance.
Okay, so that's the technical how. But how does this all translate into actual performance? What do the benchmarks say? How does 2.5 Pro stack up?
Well, the LM Arena ELO score is a great place to start, since it's based purely on human preference. Head-to-head chats, users vote.
And as we mentioned, Gemini 2.5 Pro is leading there with about 1470 ELO.
Yeah, and the sources really highlight that the margin, like 30 to 40 points above the next best, usually GPT-4o is unusually large.
Meaning people aren't just saying it's slightly better, they're often finding it noticeably better.
Exactly. Ars Technica noted Google was, justifiably crowing about being at the top of the heap because of that consistent user preference.
Okay, what about reasoning and knowledge tests, those really hard ones?
It's setting records there, too. Take humanity's last exam, HLE designed to stump even human experts. Gemini 2.5 Pro hit a new state-of-the-art score, 21.6%.
Wow. Better than GPT-4o on that one.
Yep, GPT-4o was around 20.3%, so it shows a real edge in complex multi-step reasoning. It also stays strong on the standard MMLU benchmark, high 80s, low 90s, right up there with the best. And on GPQA, the science QA test, slightly ahead of GPT-4o too.
How about math?
Very competitive. On AME 2025 problems, those Math Olympiad ones, it scored 88.0%, basically comparable to GPT-4o there. So across the board, broad knowledge, deep reasoning, science, math, it's consistently at the forefront.
And coding. You mentioned improvements there.
Yeah, it's definitely positioned as a top-tier coding assistant. The sources say it ranks #1 on things like Aider Polyglot for code editing, performs strongly on Human Evol, Natural to Code.
But there's some nuance, not top on everything.
Right. Benchmarks suggest it might be slightly behind OpenAI on Live Code Bench and maybe behind Claude 4 on certain agentic tasks like SW Bench. So it's clearly one of the top 2 or 3, but each seems to have slightly different strengths. That June update definitely focused on boosting its coding overall, though.
Okay, now a really critical point. Factuality. Avoiding making stuff up, the hallucination problem.
Huge issue. And Gemini 2.5 seems to have made real strides here, possibly helped by that built-in thinking. On a simple factual QA test, it scored 54.0% versus GPT-4o's 48.6%.
Okay, better. But what about checking sources?
That's where the FCTS grounding test comes in. It checks if the AI's answers are actually supported by known sources. Gemini scored 87.8% there.
And how does that compare?
It's way ahead. GPT-4o was at 69.6%, Claude at 77.7%. That strongly suggests it's much better at sticking to the facts when it should and less likely to just invent things.
That's a significant improvement if it holds up. And the multimodality.
Excellent performance there, too. On the MMMU benchmark, which tests understanding across different formats, it scored around 82%, basically tied with OpenAI's GPT-4v, shows it handles mixed inputs really well.
So summing up the numbers, Gemini 2.5 Pro seems to be meeting or beating GPT-4o and Claude 3 on most big benchmarks now.
Yeah, with particular strengths in reasoning, that huge context window, multimodality, and crucially, that factual grounding.
Though competitors might still have edges in certain niches, like maybe some specific coding tasks or long-form consistency.
Exactly. But the overall picture, as Google's Tulsi Doshi said, is it's a best model we've ever built, one of the best models in the industry right now.
Okay, the benchmarks are impressive. Let's bring this back to you, the listener. What does all this advanced tech actually mean for real-world use? How does Gemini 2.5 Pro change what you can do?
Well, for developers, it's being talked about as almost a universal programmer. Remember that game generation example?
From a single sentence.
Yeah. The sources talk about demos showing Gemini generating the complete runnable code for an endless runner game, or even a basic Minecraft-like game, just from one prompt.
That's way beyond just helping with code snippets. That's building whole apps.
Exactly. And it's being integrated directly into tools like Android Studio, Firebase. Businesses are using it too. Alpaca, the fintech, reported big speed-ups in development using Gemini.
And it can review existing code too, find bugs.
Yeah, review code, suggest refactoring, even spot potential security flaws automatically. Huge for code quality and safety.
What about for people working with data?
It can act almost like an on-demand data analyst. Sources mention demos where you describe data, say what you want to visualize, and Gemini generates the code for complex interactive charts like bubble charts.
Just based on your instructions,
Yeah.
without you needing to code it.
Right. Imagine just telling Google Sheets, explain this data, and it helps you find trends or build visualizations. Makes analysis much more accessible.
Could researchers use it?
Definitely. There was an example of a scientist using it to analyze experimental data and even hypothesize potential new formulas. Saves time. Could speed up discovery.
And for learning, or just daily life?
It's becoming a really powerful personal tutor and assistant. That LearnLM fine-tune is being piloted in education contexts.
Like that calculus example, step-by-step help, practice problem.
Exactly. Personalized explanations, tailored practice, instant feedback. It's like having a 247 personal TA.
Wow.
It's going into Google Classroom, being used for language practice, acting as a writing coach, helping structure ideas, refine arguments, polish prose.
And you mentioned future integration, like with voice assistants.
Yeah, the potential for putting it into wearables, AR glasses via Android XR. Imagine getting historical facts about a building whispered in your ear as you walk past. Contextual info everywhere.
Making the world feel more knowledgeable around you.
Yeah.
And Google clearly sees value here with the premium tiers.
Absolutely. Gemini Pro and Ultra Access show they expect people will pay for this level of assistance.
Businesses, too, you said. Enterprise adoption is picking up.
Ramping up fast via Google Cloud's Vertex AI. Fortune 500 companies are exploring it for everything from summarizing complex financial reports to analyzing huge volumes of biomedical research, automating tasks that used to need highly specialized skills.
And VCs are shifting focus.
Yeah, less investment in building brand new foundation models, more on building specialized applications on top of powerful models like Gemini 2.5 Pro, tools for specific industries or tasks.
Okay, so with all these powerful capabilities, there must be a lot of discussion among experts. What's the reaction been like? It sounds like a mix.
It really is. AI researchers are definitely impressed by the technical leaps. Many call it one of the biggest jumps recently in benchmark scores. It validates the focus on reasoning and multimodality.
Industry analysts mostly agree Google has reclaimed the AI crown, at least for now, in terms of raw benchmark performance. Strengthens their market position.
But they also point to that persistent issue. Ars Technica called it a fundamental flaw of current LLMs. Even the best ones can still lie or hallucinate.
Right. Powerful, but not perfectly reliable. That duality keeps coming up.
And on the more cautious side, you have ethicists and policy experts. Some worry about the speed of deployment. Mo Jiang from USC mentioned the rapid rollout could reflect a dangerous attitude towards fully vetting safety and impacts first.
Although, having multiple strong players, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, could create a kind of competitive safety dynamic, pushing each other on safety as well as features.
That's one argument. But concerns about opacity, how these models really work, remain. Experts like Timnit Gebru would likely push for more transparency, more independent audits.
What about Google's own leaders?
Naturally positive. Tulsi Doshi calls it the best model we've ever built. They emphasize being well-rounded IQ and EQ, smart but also useful, conversational.
And Demis Hassabis, DeepMind CEO, sees it as a step towards AI genuinely supporting human decision-making, analyzing complexity, reasoning logically.
In specialized fields like medicine or law, there's definite interest but also strong caution.
Understandably, summarizing research sounds great, but errors.
Exactly. As one medical researcher said, even a 0.1% error rate can be disastrous in medicine. The consensus there is AI augments human experts. It doesn't replace them. Rigorous validation is key.
And those potential errors bring us right to the challenges and controversies. Despite the progress, there are still significant risks with models like Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Absolutely. Hallucinations and misinformation are still a thing. The sources are very clear. Even this top model can confidently state falsehoods. Remember the non-existent novel summary?
It just makes things up sometimes.
Yeah. Google's adding mitigation, citing sources, warnings, links, but it's not foolproof. Users really need to be aware. It's still a buyer beware situation for critical info. And the responsibility question is tricky.
Bias is another ongoing concern, right? Training data issues.
Despite efforts to mitigate, biases in the data, cultural, gender, etc. can still creep into the outputs. That's especially risky in high-stakes applications.
And then there's the big one, job disruption.
A huge societal risk. When AI gets this good at coding, writing, data analysis, customer support, tasks done by humans could get automated. It raises very real fears about unemployment.
Economists, unions, everyone's debating the scale and speed of this. Google talks about empowerment, but the fear of automation is real.
And there was that specific controversy back in May 2025, right? The safety controls bug.
Yeah, where an update apparently broke certain safety controls, accidentally blocking important uses like an app for trauma survivors.
Exactly. It highlights just how complex managing these models is. Unintended consequences are a real risk. Google said the June 5th release fixed those regressions, but it shows how delicate the balance is between capability and safety.
Intellectual property is another messy area. Training data, AI outputs.
Still lots of legal uncertainty. Training on copyrighted material, AI generating stuff that looks like existing work. Lawsuits are happening. The EU is looking into it.
Google's trying things, like transforming content, letting publishers block scraping.
Yeah, but the core issue for creators remains unresolved. Watermarking AI text is being explored, but it's complex.
And then there's just ethical use versus misuse.
Always a concern. Could the coding ability be used for malware? Could the multimodality make deepfakes or disinformation easier?
Google has safeguards, refusal policies.
But enforcement is hard, especially against determined groups or state actors. Detection tools, regulations are being discussed, but it's an ongoing challenge.
Or finally, there's a more subtle risk, over-reliance.
Right. Because it's so good and sounds so confident and it's everywhere, people might just trust it too much without verifying.
Leading to bad decisions based on subtly wrong or biased AI output.
Exactly. It underscores the need for education, critical thinking. Keeping that human in the loop for important judgments is still absolutely vital. These are tools, not oracles.
Okay, so after that deep dive, let's try to pull out the key takeaways for everyone listening.
Sounds good. First, Gemini 2.5 Pro is a major leap. It's #1 in human preference rankings like LM Arena, setting new records on key reasoning and factual grounding tests.
Second, its unique built-in thinking architecture and that huge 1 million token context window are massive technical differentiators.
Third, these advances are quickly enabling powerful real-world uses, generating entire games, automating data analysis, providing personalized tutoring.
Fourth, Google is pushing it out everywhere. Search, workspace, developer tools, enterprise cloud, making it accessible to millions.
And fifth, despite all the progress, significant risks remain. Hallucination, bias, job disruption, IP issues, misuse. These need constant attention, careful management, and user awareness.
So looking ahead then, what comes next after Gemini 2.5 Pro?
Well, short term, expect to see it rolling out more widely, integrated even deeper into Google's products. Its general availability is a big moment for mainstream AI.
And beyond that, the race continues.
Oh, absolutely. Google's surely working on Gemini 3.0 already. Maybe those specialized models, like the rumored coding-focused Kingfall, and perhaps an ultra version of 2.5 eventually, pushing performance even further.
The focus will also be on efficiency, right? Making them cheaper to run
Yeah.
and expanding multimodality.
Definitely. Efficiency, cost reduction are key. And yeah, expanding capabilities, maybe native video understanding, even 3D sensing down the line.
Safety and alignment efforts will continue to, presumably.
For sure. Exploring things like dynamic alignment, adapting to users, maybe user customizable AI profiles, though that tension between deploying fast and ensuring safety will persist.
And the competition isn't sleeping. GPT-5, Claude Next, Llama 4.
Exactly. That competition keeps driving this incredibly rapid innovation cycle.
Ultimately, Gemini 2.5 Pro feels like another crucial step towards Google's longer-term vision, right? AI with more agency. A truly integrated digital assistant.
Yeah, the kind of AI that feels less like a tool you use and more like, as they sometimes put it, an extension of your own mind.
But getting there requires building real trust and reliability, which means tackling those fundamental challenges we talked about.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a really interesting question, I think, for you to mull over. As AI, like Gemini 2.5 Pro, gets this incredibly capable generating games, understanding libraries, helping with research, and gets woven into our daily lives, how do we adapt? How do we make sure we keep those essential human skills sharp? The judgment, the critical thinking, the verification needed in a world where the AI is so powerful, but still sometimes just makes things up.
That's a fascinating challenge, and one we're all facing together, really.
And with that thought, our deep dive into Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro comes to a close. Thank you for exploring this complex and rapidly changing technology with us today.
Yeah, keep an eye on how these powerful models get integrated into the tools and services you use every day. Understanding them is definitely key in this landscape.
Until next time.